Hello, welcome back to Better Pet Parenting. This is the third time that I'm starting this live because there is something or the other which is going wrong. Hopefully, now it's actually working and you guys can see me, and I will be able to add Leena to this. Yes, finally, it is working. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna post it on IGTV. But so today we're gonna talk about raising kids and raising dogs and whether there are similarities and whether there aren't any similarities. I have zero experience raising kids, little bit experience raising dogs, but Leena has experience
Yay!
in both worlds. So Leena will be telling us what goes on in the minds of young children and also dogs.
It's a
Hi,
very heavy
Leena. Thank
loaded
you so much
topic.
for doing this.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So I was
Sorry.
just telling people about how I have actually zero experience raising kids. But
Mm-hmm.
this is always something that's an interesting topic because I mean, human psychology, I just feel is very linked to how dogs also think. If we were simpler people who said what we thought and did what we said, I think we'd be a lot more like dogs.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, tell us a little bit about the family dog, right? Why you called the family dog? How did you get started?
I used to be a scientist,
Okay.
and I was working abroad. And then when I came back, I dabbled a little bit into advertising, and then of course gave up pretty soon because it wasn't what I liked.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, I used to interact with a lot of strays that were outside my house.
Yeah.
And observe them and all of that. And they'll get into the usual fight and territorialness and all of that happen. Between looking up Shirin Merchant for doing a course, thinking
Yeah.
that, oh, maybe this be something good to keep myself busy, I also went ahead and thought of starting a family. So that is when I got pregnant
Okay.
for the
Yeah.
first time. And unfortunately, my first child, there was an incident happened and my first child didn't make it. And
Hmm.
that is the same time that we had one of the stray dogs that lived outside the house just follow my husband one day and just enter the house and say, hello, I've arrived, I want to be part of your family,
Yeah.
keep me. So he
Yeah.
would come in the night, knock the door, come in, just go straight for the sofa, go sleep there, and get up in the morning and say, can I go out, please? Now I have to go live my other
Oh.
life. And he did that for almost like 10 days or something till I said, sorry, if you want to be part of our family, let's do this the right way.
Yeah.
So with him, which is her,
Hmm.
and his name is Ruby,
Okay.
and with him, I had a huge learning curve
Hmm.
of understanding what it is to have a outside dog who has lived on the street for, let's say, 3 or 4 years, suddenly
Yeah.
now come into your house. And we had these huge arguments and confusions. And, you say, this is my house. And the dog says, so what? I'm going to bite you. All kind of those kind of situations, right? And I realized how people must feel when they get dogs. Of course, they get puppies and maybe not a dog that is set in its way. But
Hmm.
Ruby was a very good dog to train myself on. And the biggest learning that I maybe mastered from Ruby was to how to make a stray dog that has lived outside, has a mind of its own, has its habits
Hmm.
set, now become
Yeah.
part of a new family and
Hmm.
become a dog that you can bond with and accept and let
Yeah.
your family meet and let your friends meet. And that is where the idea of the family dog came. That I don't want to train your dog into learning tricks or doing some specific heel work or things like that. But I want to train your dog become the best part of your family, such that
Hmm.
you'll be proud to introduce it to other people. And the whole idea is that if I came and trained your first dog for you,
Yeah.
then when you get your second dog, whenever that might be, that you shouldn't need me. The whole idea is that I teach you how to basically understand dogs, right? And that is how the name came up, the company came up. And then by the time we had our second kid, um, our house has been a little bit like a zoo. So we had two dogs in the house, which were ours. And there were
Yeah.
always one or two dogs who would come like a foster from the street. And these are all street dogs. I barely kept pet dogs or puppies. One would be recuperating from an accident, or somebody just got neutered. So it'll be like a constant cycle of dogs in my house. And
Hmm.
in the midst of that, when I had this baby, um, of course you do certain things you to safeguard them from each other, but I saw something that was unbelievable. So there was this incident
Hmm.
where um, my dog and one of the other street dogs, they found a box of cardboard, so
Okay.
Amazon boxes or something. I usually always give it to them so that they can play with it and rip with it. And
Yeah.
I had my baby in my hand, and I was just giving them the two boxes, and they were ripping and they were having a roaring time with it. And my daughter, who was barely, I think, 4 months or 6 months maybe, she started giggling. She started giggling and laughing, and she found it hilarious the way these guys were having fun.
Yeah.
And the dogs were really having a fun. And you realize that in the most basic, when we don't let our minds or our emotion run our the way we think,
Yeah.
kids and dogs are very similar because they judge each other, or they judge the situation purely by body language and emotions and expressions. And
Hmm.
if you go by that as an adult as well, that you actually have a much simpler understanding of dogs, and you avoid all these misunderstandings that adult people seem to have with their dogs. um,
Yeah.
you know
With other
uh,
adults also, I feel. But
Yes, of course, of course.
yeah.
And it's a trend I'm now seeing in during the lockdown with people that who have gotten lockdown dogs and everything,
Hmm.
because there more and more people are at home. They are picking up on their dogs' behavior 24/7. And there's a huge amount of misunderstanding. There's a huge amount of, how do I say, pushback, in the sense owners are saying, but why are you doing this? And then the dog pushes back, and there's a whole misunderstanding there. And it's amazing that when I go to train, I just say, okay, let's throw away all these other secondary, tertiary thoughts that you have, that maybe my dog is thinking this is why it's doing it. It wants to punish me. It wants to trouble me. And I say, just think like a child, with no ulterior
Hmm.
motive, no agenda. And just believe me, trust me, do these two, three things. And of course, they call back and say, okay, things are better. Um,
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think there's a huge similarity between how um, kids think and how dogs think, and how kids
Yeah.
behave and dogs behave. And unfortunately, we give children almost 2 years maybe
Yeah.
to become some sort of an acceptable human being in our life. We are more patient. We don't
Hmm.
have these huge expectations from children. We don't expect them to get trained within a month. We don't expect them not to spit up their food or draw on the walls and things like that. And yet, when we get a puppy, we want things done in a month,
Hmm.
right? And we don't punish children for crying. We usually try to redirect them with things like even television and chocolates and stuff, which
Yeah.
is a bribe in a way. But when we suggest to be that adjusting with dogs, somehow people are like, no, if I do that, my dog is going to be badly behaved. I don't think I
Yeah.
don't think adults are like they really want to like punish dogs or anything. But I
Hmm.
think there's a huge gap of understanding, where they
Yeah.
somehow think dogs know, they should know, just as soon as they come, they should know. Or the other misunderstanding that adults have is that if I speak the language, if I speak English and I say no, or I say don't go there, don't do this, then the dog will understand, no matter what, right? So yeah, so in my training, that is what I try to help them with. Say that have zero expectations if you haven't
Hmm.
taught your dog,
Yeah.
and have a like a realistic timeline in which you want your dogs to learn, and of course put in the work, right? You put in so
Yeah.
much work with a child, you need to put in at least half of that with a dog,
Correct.
and things will be better.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that makes a lot of sense, and I can see that a lot of people are actually, I think, relating to this. There's somebody called I am a Hirba who's saying dogs are equal to kids, so we must understand them, right? And that's, I mean, makes a lot of sense, right? And I think the part that you mentioned about benchmarks, I think that is just like mind blowing because it's actually really true. Like, um, obviously, like dogs probably like go grow faster in a shorter period of time, but it's still unrealistic to expect that, within a month or 2 months, they will immediately be perfect and adjust to the environment and all the new people now in their lives. Plus, I think we
Yeah.
just ignore the fact that, kids are kind of like with you since the day they're born in most hopeful, like whatever cases. But dogs are separated from their families and their moms and like their biological like siblings. Does that also you think make like an if does that kind of have an impact on do things kind of change
Yeah.
because of that?
Of course, in the sense, of course, if you get a puppy much ahead of time, right? So they get them at 30 days or 45 days, you have a disadvantage because there's a lot of
Yeah,
learning that the mother dog is giving it to the puppies and the
right.
sibling dogs are giving to the puppies. So you do have a problem. But
Yeah.
when ideally you do get a puppy, which is around 8 weeks, which we call is your secondary socialization period, where
Yeah.
the dog should be bonding with the humans. What mistake humans make is that they don't want to be the ideal role model. They don't understand that
Hmm.
now is the teaching phase. You have to be the guide. You have to be the role model. You have to explain to the dog what the rules of the house are and then
Yeah.
show them how to achieve that, right? That's the mistake that people make, and dogs get confused. Sometimes dogs come at 3, 4 months, so they might have a lot of unlearning to do because they might have
Hmm.
learned something else from the street or at the foster's house or anything. And one of the
Yeah.
biggest trends that I see, which I would like to mention here, even though we say yes, dogs are like kids, and most of us now our lingo has changed, right? We don't say owners. We don't say
Yeah.
pet owners, right? We say pet parents. I see myself when I go to train and I feel that the family would like me to call them their mommies and daddies. I say, okay, what's mommy saying? Come on, react like that. Okay. It's all cute and it's all okay and it's all acceptable. But at the end of the day, you also have to understand that a dog is not a human child. Okay.
Hmm.
So that's the other side of the spectrum where
Yeah.
the other extreme where human beings then start treating their dogs like human children. No, there's a huge difference between human children and puppies and dogs.
Hmm.
And when you start treating them like human children, then you get over emotional. You also do
Hmm.
over analysis. You think I wore this sari and he doesn't like this color, so he's upset at me. That's why he ripped my sari later. I have cases like that. So no, so don't make that mistake either.
Yeah.
Um, I always say, like, understand what the dog is saying from the point of view of the dog, right?
Yeah.
And the whole purpose of the family dog is exactly that we try to make you look at every situation from the dog's point of view. And
Hmm.
then the way you teach the dog changes. And the dog
Hmm.
understands it much, much quicker. When you
Yeah.
start to try teaching them like how you would, the principles are the same, but the teaching method is not exactly identical between a human child and a puppy or a adult dog.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's a very interesting point, right? One side of it is like going overboard and becoming like, my dog is my child. I will carry him in my arms, then he will sleep with me on the bed, and all of those things that are really cute. But I mean, where does one draw the line, right? If you had to tell somebody that, okay, this is where you kind of separate um, raising a dog and raising a child, right? What would that line be?
Um, so I like to keep a little bit of it has to be natural, right? So
Huh.
I say keep things natural for the dog. What is the dog's natural inclination to things? So those are simpler.
Hmm.
What it likes to chew. Okay, you don't have to buy a fancy, expensive, soft bed, right?
Hmm.
Don't have to have like some people have strollers. Okay, don't have to have a stroller for a dog. Things like that. Don't go
That's,
overboard.
I mean, it's something that seems really cute though. Can I just
Yeah,
say,
they
like
do.
dogs
They
in
do.
strollers?
But it does
Yeah.
mess up a dog somehow at later on. So keep a little more naturalistic, more natural
Hmm.
for what the dog requires and what the dog needs.
Yeah.
Also, you're going to be fair. You're going to be fair to your dog and your child, okay? But understand, unlike human beings, dogs are like hierarchy, okay? They
Hmm.
understand hierarchy, they respect hierarchy, and they are better dogs if there is hierarchy in the family. So if you have a
Hmm.
child who has come after the dog,
Hmm.
Please don't put it below the dog, okay, in hierarchy. The child still
Hmm.
has, the human child still has to go above the dog, because otherwise your child will get trouble. And I think one of the questions was something like that, like, why is
Yeah.
it that one of my dogs is only going for my child and not going for the adults? Is
Hmm.
that you have to maintain hierarchy. And sometimes people are over attached to their dogs than their, let's say, teenage kid, because when kids are teenagers, parents and are like, oh, when are you leaving home, kind of. Okay, so already you have a little bit of
Angst.
antipathy going on
A lot
with
of
them.
angst.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and if you show that, and if you by
Hmm.
mistake then change the hierarchy of the dog, then the dog is going to trouble your child. So no, so
Hmm.
keep your humans come first, okay. We are
Hmm.
not having a life changing decision making question where I'm saying, okay, let's say you have only one life jacket, whom are you going to give it to the child or to the dog? No, I'm not saying that, okay.
Yeah.
God forbid that ever happens. But
Yeah.
when it comes to day doings in your house, child come first, because your dog has the capability of biting your child. Okay, so that will
Hmm.
always be a reality. So your child
Yeah.
should always come first. Do things that your dog likes. Choose 5 things that you figure out that your dog likes. I also tell a lot of people that make sure that you every different person from the family has a
Yeah.
separate bonding time with the dog. Normally, you will see that this again it's the mother or the homemaker who's
Yeah.
spending the most time, and then the dogs have a unhealthy relationship with that person. So I also say,
Hmm.
even if it's 5 minutes before going to the school, the child does something. After coming from work, the husband does something. But let the dog have individual relationships with all the people in the family, because that will keep things
Right.
balanced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think now let's maybe like jump into the questions because a lot of
Sure.
them are kind of related to this. Okay, cool. I'll just start with the first one, which is from Nidhi, where she's asking, can we whack kids who don't listen? Human kids. It's a parenting question.
I would say, so you know how if you were in the Europe or in the America or something, they will just look down on Indian parents, because Indian parents are very easy,
Yeah.
and one laugha maro, things will become okay. So occasional spanking, yeah. Do I do it? Yeah, sometimes it happens. You're just pissed off, right? But there's this huge amount of study that's gone on, that how the psychological effect of really beating up children,
Yeah.
capital punishment. So I would say, ideally, do not do it. You might have
Yeah.
one off day, but communicate. Children as young as 3 or 4 years old, which blew my mind when I saw my
Yeah.
daughter. As young as
Mm.
3 or 4 years old, they can communicate. They can really communicate. You just need to ask the right questions. They will
Mm.
tell you. And similar to dogs, it clears up your misunderstanding, right? And then you cool down, and then you don't feel as pissed at your child, and
Yeah.
you can work things out. So yeah,
Yeah.
try not to hit your kids.
I feel like anyway, like whether it's a dog or a human child, it's anyway such an exercise in patience. It is
Yeah, it's
both
my
journeys.
observation that
Yeah.
good human parents
Yeah.
make good dog owners, as well as good dog owners make good human parents. It somehow goes hand
Hmm.
in hand, because as you said, those are people with high patience. Those are people eager to learn. Those are people
Hmm.
who try to figure out alternate methods,
Yeah.
and don't are not afraid to ask for help from other parents or other behaviorists.
Yeah. Yeah. That's somebody should do a study on that. That'll be cool.
Mm.
So there's another question, which was that my German Shepherd pup is 7 months and still nips or bites on my 9-year-old son's legs and hands, but not adults. Why is that?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, most probably one is the issue that it most probably is hierarchy. Dogs have a very
Hmm.
innate sense of knowing who's the youngest person in the family, because everyone else treats that person as the youngest of the family, right? So there'll be a fair amount of yelling, there's a fair amount of bullying, there's a fair amount of bossing around that person. And
Yeah.
there's also possibility that, because if the child is 8, 9 years old, many of the disciplining of the dog is not done by the child, it's done by the parents. So the dog also knows, okay, I don't get disciplined by this person, I don't get yelled at this person, and so I'm getting they understand who's the youngest. Also remember, it's a German Shepherd. So a German Shepherd,
Correct.
um,
Hmm.
they look down at feet, right? They look down at the legs of things because they're used to herding sheep and stuff. So
Hmm.
when a 9-year-old is most probably running around the house more than a parent or an adult. So to them, it's like, oh, a sheep is running. I need to kind of herd it around. So they go around. So simple things like where you will make sure that the 9-year-old trains the dog,
Hmm.
where you allow the 9-year-old to discipline the dog. You find an activity that the two of them can do, which kind of satisfies the German Shepherd, and of course
Hmm.
maybe a little bit of control of how the child is behaving in the house in terms of running around or chasing and things like that, will
Got it.
really help.
Awesome. I hope that helps the person who asked this question. There's actually a question in the chat which I want to get to first, which is Asuri Life for Me is asking, what exactly are you referring to when you say hierarchy? When dogs understand hierarchy.
So let's say you are sitting on a sofa and watching television,
Yeah.
and your dog was sitting next to you on the sofa, and just
Yeah.
chilling with you, right? Has his head on your lap. Your child comes in, or your husband comes in and wants to sit next to the sofa, and tells the dog, "Come on, get off. I want to sit." And you still have your hand on your dog, and some adjust कर लो ना, आप वहाँ बैठ जाओ. Or you tell your kid कि
Hmm.
नीचे बैठ जाओ, नीचे बैठ जाओ,
Hmm.
okay, like sit down. That little bit of a thing where you now physically the dog is higher. Let's say the child is sitting on the
Hmm.
floor. The owner body language wise said ki the dog is a little bit more important. You can adjust. Just those small two things puts the dog's hierarchy above your child's or above your husband's. Okay. So as
Hmm.
opposed to as soon as the person comes, and even before the person asks you, because the dog is sitting next to you, say, Acho chalo bingo, get off the sofa, come on. Not your place to sit, go to your bed. Just this much tone. It's not punishment, it's not forcing, but it's saying, no, this house belongs to me, my husband, my child, then it's you. That is
Hmm.
setting up hierarchy. Okay, and I've just given a
Got
generic
it.
example, but this
Yeah.
applies to many different things.
Yeah.
And usually it stems from um, not having clear rules,
Hmm.
and letting the dog get away with things that you otherwise wouldn't let your child get away with. And that
Hmm.
confuses the dog, where the dog thinks it has power and has more
Yeah.
power than the child.
Hmm.
Okay, so and it hierarchy is about power. Basically, how much power does each person have in the family? That's
Yeah.
it.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I never actually thought it's kind of like that whole kind of related to like how microaggressions are also like these small incidents that kind of put you in your place, right? Or are
Right,
intended to put you in
right,
some place,
right,
whatever. But
right,
in
right,
a way, you're kind of showing your dog with these little things that, yes, but this will always precede what you want to do.
right, right.
Makes sense. Okay, so there's another question, which is how do you train them to be calm with elders? This is kind of the opposite of the spectrum because, but I'm guessing it's probably similar, right?
Uh,
In some ways.
Depends on what the dog is. Is it a puppy? Is it an adult dog? Is it a senior dog? So if it's a senior dog, I'm
Okay.
not expecting it to be crazy.
Hmm.
If it's an adult dog, of course, training, taking it out for activities that it likes, having
Hmm.
structure, routine structure to
Okay.
the dog's life really helps calm down the dog.
Hmm.
Um, Even with grandparents and all, I tell them to do some basic training as much as sit on a sofa and just tell the dog to look at you. Do 5 look at me's, do 5 sits or something like that, as simple as that. When it comes to puppies, however, puppies
Yeah.
really need structure. And apart from structure, they need sleep. Okay. What normally happens is that when the puppy is all, I want to play, I want to have fun and all that, everybody finds it cute. They're running around, they're having a lot of fun, lot of fun, lot of fun. They amp up the dog, really.
Hmm.
And then they leave him hanging there. They don't bring him down. They don't bring his energy down. And then the dog has passed its nap time, which is almost every 2 hours, I would say, 2 to 3 hours, past its nap time. And then you have a crazy little beast not knowing what to do. It's like
Hmm.
equivalent to what we say a cranky kid. When a kid gets
Yeah.
cranky, it just screams and yells and cries and throws itself on the floor. And when it happened to me in the beginning, I was like, what the hell is happening? Till you realize that the child doesn't understand that it's so tired. It doesn't understand what's happening to itself. So you're supposed to put the child to nap before that happens. And the same thing applies for puppies. So I am a big pro on crate training. So I
Yeah.
put puppies on a 2 3 hour cycle, and we do our eating, peeing, pooping, playing, training, go to sleep, and then repeat, go to sleep. And every time we do the go to sleep before the dog is overtired, And that really takes away all the biting, nipping, the crazy zoomies, all of that out of the equation. And you have a dog that has a reliable, predictable structure to its life,
Hmm.
uh, and is calm.
Yeah, makes sense. So basically having a structured routine and making sure you're accounting for both exercise and then also like calming down,
Yeah,
right? So
cooling down, what we
rest
say.
and then okay,
Yeah,
got it.
yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. Okay, cool. So there is another question, which is I think more of like a general query around what is being a first time pet parent like? Being a first time pet parent, what is it like? Yeah.
Pretty much like being a first time parent to a child, without that crazy exhaustion that you have. Like as a mother, you have a crazy amount of exhaustion when you have a child.
Yeah.
But when you have puppy, and I always tell this, this is a child that now is going to stay with you for the next 15 years, never going to graduate, never going to go to college, okay? So you're
Yeah.
gonna, it's a permanent fixture in your life. But the first year of a puppy's life is pretty much like having a child. Um,
Hmm.
as I said, your expectations should be realistic. The amount of energy that you put in for the routine is high, on the higher side in the beginning. You should
Yeah.
ask people to help you. Be realistic with how much you can also provide. So if you need a walker, get a walker. If you need somebody to cook the food, get that done.
Hmm.
But it's an awesome experience. On a personal level, because I've had a child and I somehow don't have this thing, oh, I need to have a puppy. I feel that for the rest of my life, whenever I get a dog, it's going to be a adult dog. I find
Older
them
one.
easier. I find them, takes away half the sting of, pet parenting. But a lot of people really, really like to get puppies because they have
Yeah.
this, they're cute, they're nice, they're sweet. They also, you get the chance of training them from day one. Also, some people have this misunderstanding that you bond better with puppies than with adult dogs, okay? That
Hmm.
may or may not be true. But it,
Yeah.
of course, means that you are making sure the puppies every hour,
Yeah.
you are taking care of its meal times. In the beginning, puppies are eating 5 6 times. You're cleaning up after them, you're training them, and apart from all of that, you're doing your daily work. That might be home housework, or that might be going to office and doing other kind of jobs as well, right? So
Yeah.
be ready, be sure that you're 120% ready for a puppy, and then get a dog home.
Makes a lot of sense. I think if people would just like spend some time to think about it before just doing it. Next question is, can you manage having a kid and a dog with a 13-hour workday life? Or do you need a higher help? What
You
is
need
your
help.
advice?
Yes, you can manage, but you need help.
Hmm.
We do not leave. So, of course, I'm assuming your child has a nanny, because if you're 13 hours at work, your child is not home alone. Either has
Yeah.
grandparents or has a nanny. So, if you have the nanny and the grandparents willing to help you with the dog, then okay, you don't need to hire another person. But uh, if you have like a slightly older child who will take a little bit of responsibility, still I think you might need help, as at least in terms of a walker.
Hmm.
I like to double up my help. So instead of saying getting somebody exclusive for the dog, I teach my cook to do a pee break for the dog. I have my driver who will do the vet visits. I kind of train all the existing members, existing staff of the house to also do dog jobs. So that's a prerequisite when they come, that you have to like a dog, plus you'll have to
Yeah.
do some dog work for me. So the cook also cooks for the dog. So that kind of, it's like how it takes a village to raise a child, it also takes a village to raise a puppy. So
Yeah.
might as well get that help. If you have no help and you have an older child who can manage to be on his own, but then goes, let's say, does tuition or does school and
Hmm.
is out of the house more than 4 hours, then you definitely need somebody, because we do normally do not leave dogs alone at home, especially in the first year. We won't do it longer than 4 hours. We train
Yeah.
them to be independent, but anything longer than 4 hours has its detrimental effect. So you will need help.
Got it. I think crystal clear on that. So there's as the last kind of question theme that we kind of get into, there's a lot of questions around puppy biting, right? There was also another question around teenage dogs and the second kind of phase of biting. Any advice you have, especially for people who have like kids at home? How do you kind of manage that situation?
So number one, let's understand what is puppy biting, right? So when you get a puppy at around 8 weeks or 6 weeks, okay, so people get them at 6 weeks, 45 days, okay.
Yeah.
Puppy is not biting. Oh, such cute! It's so much fun, okay. And then the baby tooth are kind of settling. So that's
Yeah.
first phase of biting, okay. Then when the puppy is about 4 months is when those teeth are beginning to fall and your permanent set of teeth are coming out, and that's your
Correct.
second phase of biting.
Yeah.
Then you have around 7 or 8 months when the puppy becomes a teenager, and that is your third phase of biting in some ways, okay. So phase one and phase two, very natural, right? Because they are teething. So you take care of teething. How do you take care of teething? You give them just the way we do it with children. When children have teeth erupting, they are
Yeah.
cranky and they are crying and they are in pain. So we give
Yeah.
them something to soothe it. So usually ice-based things or something that they can chew on. They are teethers for children, and you put them in the freezer and you give them to children. Same
Yeah.
thing, you get some teether equivalent. So we usually use 10 to 15 different uh, textures of things because the
Okay.
dog will have a preference for something over other. You can freeze them if you want, and it should have a nice bite to it so that they can massage their gums. Okay, so
Yeah.
when the dog is teething, you give these things to redirect it to these things, and make sure that you are giving it an appropriate surface to bite at. What
Yeah.
normally happens is also this is the bit that people miss, is that when the dog is biting something that is allowed to bite,
Hmm.
you pay it no attention, right? You forget about it. Then it lets go of it and it bites you, and now you're yelling. So you give a lot of attention. So this is the part that gets messed up with dogs. That dogs
Yeah.
also thrive for attention. Okay. So when it's biting something that it's allowed to bite, give it a lot of attention, give it a lot of praise. When it's doing something that you do not like it, do not give attention. Be firm, redirect. Okay, redirect. No doesn't mean anything to a dog, okay? No, the way you say no can be easily mean yes, yes, bite me. So you don't say no, you be firm. You can use a little bit of I call it the dirty face. Make a dirty face and I don't like it, whatever. And then
Yeah.
redirect. And as soon as it bites the thing that you allow it to chew, smile, be happy, whatever. Okay. Number three, keep up the training so that the dog is mentally tired. If a mentally tired dog is not going to sit and think, ab kya karoon, should I do, who should I bite, what should I do, okay? Do that. And number three, as I said before, make the dog sleep on time. Most of the puppy biting is happening because the dog is overtired and doesn't know what it has to do. When it comes
Yeah.
to phase three of biting, which is teenager, just keep up the training. It is a rebellious phase. It is where they're saying, I can do anything I want, who are you? And especially what happens, just like how it happens with kids, parents get very like, मैं तेरा बाप हूँ types, right? Like, I am your father, I am your mother. How dare you talk to me like that? And they do exactly the same thing to these 7, 8 month dogs, like who are like having their testosterone and their estrogen flying through the roof. It doesn't work. Please back off, because all that you get is pushback. You have a teenage dog that pushes back harder and harder and harder. So be smart, be soft, be firm. Have your rules in place. Do your training, but don't get into this like, it's my
I feel
house.
like this
I
is
feed
again
you.
teenage dogs and teenage kids also is a whole other similar
Yes, yes,
kind
yes.
of
And
phase.
again, I would like to say, parents are extremely patient with their teenage kids,
Yeah.
right? We give them a lot of space. We give them a lot of avenues to explore and keep themselves busy. Please be equally kind and equally forgiving to your teenage dogs, because
Yeah.
it's the same thing, okay? Ultimately, the phase of growing up is the same.
Yeah.
So be forgiving, be adjusting, and be smart. Good parents are smart parents, are chalak parents. They're cunning. I say be cunning. Cunning and figure out a way. Uh, but don't use ego.
I think this live session. If the people who are watching, I think you should all just save this so that whenever you're having your next kid, please just watch this again. Same lessons apply for everything. But yeah, I think we're at the end of all the questions that we had around this. Thank you so much, Leena, for doing this. I had a blast. This is
Welcome.
going to be, I think, really good for a lot of people to watch and learn from. I am going to send this to my parents, first of all, just so that they know what mistakes they made with us. But thank you so much for doing this. Yeah.
Thank you for having me. And if anybody has any questions that we couldn't answer, just DM me at
Yes.
my handle, and then I'll help you out.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Nice to see you all. See ya. Bye.
Bye.